Super cool radio.
We're good to go.
I'm not.
Oh shit! My pop filter just like slid off. That was weird. Give me a moment.
Man, you got some gremlins.
Man. It's like, of course, anything that's going to go wrong is going to happen right now.
Yeah, I started coughing. Your mic fell apart. We're off to a fantastic start.
Oh, man.
I don't know. Maybe I heard there's an asteroid coming dangerously close to Earth, so maybe that will hit. I don't know.
Well, because we needed to find a way to make 2022 worse than the last 2 years.
It sounds hard, but also easy at the same time.
It's true. It's like, oh, it can't get any worse. That's me in 2020.
Yeah. Well, everyone said that 2020 was their year, and that just messed everything up.
Does that give a weird blue glow? Look at this. Isn't this the coolest thing ever?
Nice.
It's not really practical because like nobody else sees it but me, and it gives that weird blue glow. But I kept telling my wife, I was like, you know, on Full House that Jesse had like the red bulb outside of the basement door when they were in the basement recording. I was like, I'm going to get one of those. She's like, there's not a chance in hell. Like, good. Just be quiet all the time then and assume I'm recording.
I might have to get one of those for mine too.
Right?
All right. Unorthodox start to this interview. Hello, everyone. I am Matthew Thomas. This is Super Cool Radio. I got a good friend joining me for this episode. You may remember I appeared on his show last year. Hailing from north of the border, please welcome the host of every podcast I love is dead, Nolan Guenther.
That is quite the intro. Thank you, sir.
Hey, I like to make my intros stand out a little bit. I put a lot of, tens of seconds into that.
Tens of seconds.
But before we start, I got a very serious question. I'm hitting you with some very hard questions right out of the gate.
Good. Yeah, that's always the best thing to do.
Pepsi or Coke?
My man, it's always Coke. I am a Coke guy. I know that we're going to definitely be divided on that topic, but yeah, it's always been Coke for me.
Well, this is going to be a very awkward interview.
Yeah, you know what? With Pepsi, everything that they make besides Pepsi is delicious. I love 7-Up and what is it, Sierra Mist. And depending on where you are in the States, they bottle Dr. Pepper. In Canada, they bottle Dr. Pepper. But Pepsi itself, can't do it. No way, no how.
All right, well, the interview's done now. I'm done.
That's the hard-hitting news for the day, that's for sure. I'm more of a water guy myself, though. I just guzzle gallons of it a day.
Honestly, I probably should start doing that more. Got to cut some weight. Got to keep the physique of only seeing this part of me.
It's like you look very, very svelte from this point up, and then it's like nobody ever gets to see the bottom half of us, and it's like, holy shit.
Yeah, exactly. Until I start doing in-person interviews like later in the spring, and I go, I probably should cut some weight a little bit.
That'll be the best part about post-pandemic when everything fully returns to normal is people will be like, oh my God, you really let yourself go. It's like, correction, I had let myself go years ago. You just couldn't tell.
I did it better in 2019 than 2020 happened. I said, forget it. I'm done.
You put me on video and everything's fine. And then I'll have to meet in person when I can't even do up my pants or button up a shirt. And it's like, all right.
That's why I like basketball shorts, sweatpants, sweatshirts. That's the go-to stuff.
Yeah, yeah. Back in the 90s, it was like you dress baggy just because that was the style. Now you dress baggy because, well, for me, I got the dad bod, so it covers that up a little bit.
See, I'm not dad yet, so I can't claim that yet. So I have to be in shape.
What do you call the dad bod if you're not a dad?
I don't know. I did not have a quick response that I thought I would.
Now I'm hitting you with the hard-hitting questions.
Hey, this is my show. I'm not supposed to answer questions. But that's a good question. I don't know. I feel like Joseph would have a good answer for that.
He probably would.
Yeah, he's definitely got the quick wit. I have funny comments here and there, but not so much on the. I have like the dial-up wit. I'll come up with it later.
You need your tens of seconds to plan it beforehand.
Exactly.
I got you.
Just like waking up at like 11 a.m. today, getting ready for this.
How do you handle those early mornings?
Well, you don't have to if you don't wake up in the morning.
I haven't done that since I was a teenager, man. 11 o'clock is just unfathomable.
So like 4 years ago?
Yep. Just a few short years ago as I was graduating high school. And yep.
All right, so I was on your show last year, which I really appreciated. Really fun time chatting with you. We've become obviously really good friends since then. Actually, I think we've interviewed a few bands as well. You know, Elsie Banks, whose shirt I got right now, the Almas, Illusion of Grandeur, a bunch of great bands we share in common. But so what's kind of your goals for this year of 2022 for Every Podcast I Love Is Dead? I know you're expanding with adding a few different shows as well.
Yeah, when you think 2 podcasts isn't enough, then you layer on a third one, and who knows, maybe by the end of the year I'll be hosting like 5 or 6 different shows and just keep changing my name to make it work. As far as EPILID goes, I really kind of want to keep in line with what I was doing. I think I've taken the opportunity to kind of find the right format. I took 2021 to kind of figure out what was going to work. I've cut out some things. I tried a few things last year that just didn't land, cut those out. And then, just be able to build on that this year. My, I guess, personal podcaster goal, though, is really to build a community and a network. And I mean, you and I have connected. We've got Joseph. We've got Brian from the Concerts That Made Us, and Sydney from Behind the Behind. And we're just kind of gathering Isaac from LTE podcasts. Like, we're gathering all these people in, and we're building a great podcaster community. And then I want to expand that beyond and build like a great community for listeners, for the musicians that we talk to, the creators of this stuff. So Discord's actually been pretty handy in that. And that's been one of those, like, exiting 2021. I'm like, I need to figure out what the hell Discord is and how to use it, because everybody's on there. 2021, I learned what Twitch was and kind of how to use it. 2022 was like, all right, let's figure out Discord.
It definitely, we were part of a really awesome community of great podcasters. Many of whom you've introduced me to, obviously bringing me in. And I didn't know anything about Discord either until you said, hey, join this, and then, hey, join this one, and then, hey, join this one.
And pretty soon we've got like 12 different Discord servers, and it's only us that are part of all of them so far. So
so far yet.
We'll bring everybody else in.
Yeah, or just have to start making those fake bots again, because that was a great experiment.
Yeah. The bots were certainly the least helpful thing I've seen on the internet in a long time. For those that are unaware, you can add bots to your Discord server, and they're supposed to be helpful. They aren't. They were completely useless. So, but as we talked about, it helped me take the violence off of you and put it onto the bots. So that's always good news.
It's good you choose violence for stuff that can't fight back. It's all great.
That's right. Yeah.
All right. So, how'd you get started with Every Podcast I Love Is Dead? I know you kind of explained this in a few different interviews as well, but I know that you started with like actual radio and stuff. So how was it like coming up with a podcast?
So I'd wanted to do podcasts for years. I'd always talked to buddies about it. I've got some really close friends who are just incredibly funny. And I always thought, it'd be great if we just like put a mic in the room and recorded ourselves. But one thing that you realize when you get older is it's very hard to wrangle in your friends, especially when they become parents and are married and kind of move on with their lives. A lot of the same reason why music didn't really work out for me, because it was just hard to find those dudes to jam with after a certain point. So I've been thinking about podcasting for years. The pandemic really kind of forced a lot of change for us, and the fact that like I've been working from home now since March of 2020, and you save on this commuting to and from your job site, and you get to kind of just, you're in this home world for so long. So I was kind of just trying to look for opportunities to fill up my time a little bit. I will mute that. I don't even know why it beeped. It is on mute. Anyway.
It's those ghosts again.
Yeah, right. So just looking for opportunities to fill my time with something. Radio was something I went to school for, went through college to become a radio, not necessarily a radio broadcaster. Like we did on air, we talked about, you know, how to structure breaks and host a show and do all those sorts of things. But I really took to the behind the scenes stuff. I loved doing audio production. I loved recording others. I loved putting together like commercial copy and doing scripts and that sort of thing. So none of that worked out for me, by the way. I left college and I was like, what do I want to do with my life? And I ended up in telecom for 14 years, and that became my life and my career. So when that opportunity kind of came to its end, and I changed careers and changed lifestyles and then ended up working from home, it was, well, what do I really love? And the answer is music. I've always been obsessed with music. Music is my world. You know, it's like my family, music, and football. Those are like the top of the list. So it was easy to figure out the topic. And I really kind of wanted to make this show that was like rock, metal, punk. Let's talk about the music that I love. If you don't love it, too bad. I'm talking about it today. Didn't really expect to have guests or do the interview thing off the hop, but quickly I realized, and, you know, I was trying to do everything by the book when I started the podcast. You know, I didn't play any copywritten music. I didn't use any sort of material that, you know, would constitute plagiarism or anything like that. So you quickly realize that on a podcast where you're talking about music, but not playing the music, kind of sucks. So I ended season 1 at the end of December after 3 episodes, and then kind of went back to the whiteboard and planned out what 2021 was going to look like.
There you go.
Started season 2 after I think 1 episode or 2 episodes. Started booking guests, doing that sort of thing. By about mid-year, I was like, screw it. I'm just going to play music. I'm going to play clips of music. I'm promoting these bands. I'm promoting these artists. There's no financial gain. You don't get into podcasting to make money. So,
What?
right? I don't know if
What?
you do this. I know your show is very marketable and you're making thousands a month, but for somebody like me who's still pretty new, ish. It's always an ish. So yeah, that's been the journey. We're into season 3 now on EPILID. I'm going to keep it as like a yearly season start rather than like, hey, you started a show in December and ended it in December. What's the deal with that? So that's my very, very long answer to your question.
Well, I appreciate it. It gave me a lot of time to think about stuff and respond to it. But
Tens of seconds.
It's kind of funny. Yeah, those tens of seconds again. That's just the running gag for stuff now.
Yep.
But very similar to how I started as well. I know we're obviously, without giving away too much, we're in a, obviously a little generational gap with, where we come from and stuff. And,
yeah, I think you're a couple of years older than me. So
yeah, yep, exactly.
Yeah.
Maybe like 3 or 4, whatever. I'm the elder statesman of this.
At least in experience.
Maybe on how not to do stuff, which is going to lead to another point I want to make in a minute. But starting out, like, you're maybe not timid, but like, obviously, like, okay, got to follow the rules with this stuff. Gotta get this. You can't play this music because it's from this person and stuff. But then after a while, you kind of realize, like, unless they have like to me, I would think it'd be honored if I could get a cease and desist from somebody going, "Hey, stop playing our music." I think that would be something.
It's like somebody listened to my podcast somewhere that actually is important enough to like send me a cease and desist. This is fantastic.
Yeah, exactly. Legal issues are fun.
Yeah. Especially cross-border legal issues. I'm sure that would be real wonderful.
Yeah, I don't even know. I don't know what kind of stuff you have in Canada. Probably some weird stuff, but no offense to anyone. But
yeah, the Mounties just ride their horses around the community, patrolling for any sort of legal issues. Misuse of maple syrup, unauthorized street hockey. Flannel problems, not wearing enough flannel, not wearing enough denim, all those sorts of things. It's tricky living in Canada. There's a lot of suppression on who you can be as a person. So
I gotta be careful what I say, because like Canada's like my second biggest country of like listenership and viewership. So I'm not gonna say too much, but I will ask: do you own a Canadian tuxedo?
I don't. It's funny. I don't own a lot of denim in general. And I asked my wife for a denim coat for Christmas from Old Navy, oddly enough. It was like a Sherpa line denim coat. But I've got this weird like body proportion. I'm tall, but my legs are very short. But my upper body then stretches out quite a bit. So I go to put on this coat that I got for Christmas, and it's like up to my nipples. Like it's like a belly coat at this point. So it was just kind of awkward. I was like, okay, I can't really pull that off. I'm mostly a hoodie guy anyways. And only when it's cold will I wear jeans. So no Canadian tuxedo. I do own a fair amount of flannel though. I do enjoy a good flannel shirt.
See, I'm like the opposite. Like I got like a bunch pair of jeans and like I don't have any jackets yet, but I used to when I was younger. I had like a denim actual shirt, but I don't have any flannel. Which I mean, I live in Indiana, but still people wear flannel here because it's like 32 degrees here, freezing. But yeah, no, I don't have any flannel. So
good time to invest. I heard the flannel market's doing really well right now. You can start trading it like Bitcoin, so get in while it's hot.
I still have to get into that too because I never got into that.
No, I use a trading app. I got into a little bit of like day trading last year, and when I say that, people are always like, "Oh yeah, like you must have money to invest." I don't. So I took $20 and I was like, "I'm going to buy a stock." So I went in and I bought a stock, and it happened to do okay. So I used the profit from that stock to buy more stock. And now I think I'm at like $55 worth of stock. But at one point they messaged me and they were like, we're now trading cryptocurrencies and you can buy fractional cryptocurrencies. So I was like, oh, I don't even know how that works. So that one dissuaded me a little bit. But while I was looking at that, I was like, oh, I can buy into Tesla on a fractional of a currency. So I own like a 0.0001% of a Tesla stock. So I'm kind of a big deal.
I didn't realize I was talking to someone who's such a big deal. I don't think I'm worthy of doing this interview.
Yeah. I don't even drive a Tesla. You can't afford them. They're a lot more affordable in the States than they are up here.
They're still kind of expensive, though.
Yeah, they can be.
And they're not very practical because, like, I've seen like maybe 3 charging stations in all of the city.
Well, that's a big problem in Canada is that, so anybody who's kind of along that 2 hours from the border, 2-3 hours from the US border, you're okay. But you go up beyond that and it's like no man's land. Nothing exists that far. There's friggin' polar bears walking around everywhere.
And moose?
And moose, yeah. Well, I could show you a picture. My buddy just took a picture of a moose the other day in his front yard, which was that's pretty cool. But you're in a city, so it's also kind of like, are we taking their land away?
Terrifying.
Yeah. But yeah, there's no charging station. So I know that there was a lot of funding that was put towards like, okay, we're going to at least take the Trans-Canada Highway and we're going to put charging stations along there. So that'll be good. But I'm a camper. So in the summertime, we take out our trailer and there is no way I'm going to make it anywhere on an electric vehicle. So until they get that figured out, I'm sticking with my gas guzzling F-150.
Oh no, a Ford. Oh no.
Oh, I got another strike against me, do I?
Yeah, I don't. Nope.
This is going really well. You know, we were friends coming into this, and then we'll just choose violence, and we'll be enemies going out of it. It's perfect.
Yeah, we're just gonna hate each other for life now.
Yeah.
And just wait for when I bring on Joseph. That's gonna be an interesting show.
Yeah, that one should be a lot of fun.
If he gets back to me, he keeps blowing me off.
I love that we're in the same Discord server and we literally talk like all day long, and he's still like, nah, I'm not going to bother responding to that.
I mean, I understand. I wouldn't respond to me either if I wasn't me, so that's all right.
Well, he's an RC Cola guy, which I thought was an unusual choice to pick in that Cola war.
It is good.
Is it? I don't even think that we have RC in Canada anymore.
I don't think so. It's like a Midwest to like where he lives in like Texas. It's like kind of like the Midwest and like the South Central.
I don't feel like I'm missing out on much, in all honesty. So
you're missing out on everything.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Fair enough.
If shipping rates weren't so expensive, I would send you a case. But knowing the postal service, it would get there and all the cans would be destroyed and busted open and all of it.
Yeah. Because the only thing worse than the U.S. Postal Service is Canada Post.
Really? That is actually. I'm very surprised because like. I don't like my postal service. You don't even get your stuff then?
From time to time, we'll get it. You know, if FedEx or Purolator delivers it. If we have to wait for Canada Post, generally there's no tracking numbers. There's no accountability. If they lose something, it's your fault. This is where I lose my sponsorship from Canada Post. So I guess I'm throwing it all out on the line here.
Oh, any other people you don't like? We got Ford, we got Canada in general, we got Canadian Post. Man, we're just hitting all the high spots.
Yeah, really, we're just knocking them all down and really limiting our chances of monetizing our shows.
Well, I gave up on that long ago, so I'm okay with it. I'm just gonna get all the hate mail. Hey, this Nolan guy talked about Canadian Post, eh? Oh man. Oh, none of this was ever. I had stuff lined out I wanted to talk about, but honestly, I like where we're going when we're just talking about this stuff.
Yeah, well, listeners of my show tend to know how much I digress, especially on my guest interviews, because we'll be talking music, and then all of a sudden we're talking horror movies, obscure horror movies from the 80s, and then like video games from our childhood. And I think it all serves the greater purpose. It comes together, but maybe for some listeners who don't want to focus on 12 different topics at once, it might be a little bit challenging to follow.
I mean, it's kind of fun. And the way I plan interviews is like I'll plan out the stuff that I want to talk about, like just in case I get stuck or like I want to move on. But like honestly, after I ask like the first question, it's usually out the window where I'll just start going in some certain direction or we start talking about something. But how's that with you? Like how do you plan out like your interviews for stuff? Like I have a whole ass note of stuff. What do you do? Because I've heard you've been slacking lately.
Lately I have. You know, I messaged you guys on Sunday night being like, hey, I've got an interview on Monday at noon. I haven't done any prep. And I kind of don't feel like doing any prep. I say that though, and I'm one of those procrastinators who's amazing in the like 0 hour, because I'll burn through an artist's music and consume everything they have on social media and their website, and then like all of a sudden I've got a whole list of questions. But I would say my preparation used to be better in the sense of like I understood more of the backstory of the band. Now I've kind of left it so it's like I want to learn, so I'm going to ask you questions like your fans would ask you questions, like what do they want to know about the band and that sort of thing. And majorly it goes okay. But when you have a guest who doesn't like to talk or has very simple, like yes, no answers, and that's some on me, like sometimes I'll ask those closed-ended questions where it's like, all right, I should have asked that a little bit better. But yeah, when you're really struggling, it's challenging. So you're looking, whatever notes you have prepared to just like pull something out of your ass. But a lot of times what I find is like, even the minimal notes I've prepared and the questions I want to ask somehow get answered long before I ever ask them. And when that comes up, it's just like, all right, time to pivot. let's go that direction. Let's focus on that, and then find my place later on.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same way. I used to like really prepare out stuff, but I feel like if you're if you're just super prepared, like you kind of know everything already, then it's not as fun. There's no intrigue, there's no mystery to it. And like some of my interviews that I had a really good time with, I was not as prepared as I usually am, and we just had a really great conversation.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really what it's about. And that's the hope, I think, of most podcasters, is to like at least just capture a moment where it's authentic, where it's real, where you're having a good conversation with somebody that would really play well to fans and listeners that weren't part of that conversation, but now they can feel like they're part of it. Yeah, those are good feelings when that happens.
Well, it definitely is. And I mean, I feel like all the interviews I've done, I feel like I'm still learning how to do an interview and like still like, doing better with like how I say stuff, like what you do. And like the thing, like I know you haven't, I don't think you've experienced this yet, like the in-person interviews, like I was telling you about that, like my last one last year. It's super stressful, like to set it up, where to do it, how to do it. And you only get, I get like maybe 10 minutes, for like those in-person at venue shows. And it's cool because like you did it was fun, but like it is super stressful to set up.
Yeah, I think maybe one benefit of my show is I haven't really gone the YouTube route yet. I have a YouTube channel. I'll upload trailers, but I'm not posting my episodes on there. I record all my guests when we do our conversations. I use Zoom. So it's available. I've got it. I've never really been a video guy, and it's slowly I'm kind of learning it. But yeah, not having video makes it so that it's like, well, I can interview anybody in the world, just play the audio, and it's kind of like we're together anyways. Mine has a few of those, often audio glitches and that sort of thing.
Which you kind of bring up a good point.
Segue.
Yeah, that was you're doing my job for me. I guess I should just leave. But I don't know I don't know, unless you're like an actual podcaster, you work in radio or broadcasting or something like that, which I know not all of our listeners or viewers or fans do. I don't know if anyone really understands how much actually goes into making an episode, even if it's just audio, where I do like audio on the episodes because like, oh, I said that kind of weird, or there's an awkward pause there. You can just cut that out and no one will ever notice. Video is different. If I have a weird pause or if I make a stupid face or something, you kind of can't eliminate that without someone going, that's a weird cut because you were here and now you're over here. It's not as good, it's not as easy to do. But like, how much for you? Like, what's your like editing process? Like, what do you use? How do you put a show together?
Oh man, that's a good question. Again, that's kind of a learning experience. You kind of pick up stuff along the way. And yeah, for anybody who's listening, who's never put together a show, done a podcast, done a radio show, created a movie, a video, whatever it might be, the easiest part of that is just the conversations. Like talking to a guest, easiest part of the whole thing. And then you get to the post and you've got to do all that editing and you've got to, make sure things sound great. And for my show, like I'll have the interview, but I also do, my intros. I talk about new music releases, talk about upcoming shows and that sort of thing. So then there's also my voice that I've got to edit in there. So I've never really been a stranger to a digital audio workstation. I mean, in college, I grew up using them. Post-college, I was working with a few dance studios to create music for them. I've been in the recording booth before as a musician and watched like producers do their thing. But when you start out, unless you are, you've got tons of money and anything is really at your fingertips, finding what you want to use is a little bit of a challenge, but finding the right thing and not having either the right equipment, the money to pay for licenses, whatever it might be, that's where that new challenge comes in. So you look for things that are free or cheap and you try and work with those until you can't. I've been really fortunate. I mean, I think you do your podcast through Anchor, at least you use that for distribution. And Anchor is what I went to right off the hop. I know that there's a few others that are out there. I think Joseph uses Buzzsprout for his. That was a good thing because Anchor's free. Anchor will distribute your podcast. That sounds like a commercial. Distribute your podcast wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, blah, blah, blah. But it's true. Like, it just takes all the guesswork out of it. It's just like if you're a musician right now and you aren't using DistroKid, go figure out DistroKid because it does the same thing as Anchor. It takes your music and it puts it everywhere. So you don't have to figure it out for yourself. And I find that's a big challenge too, right off the hop is like, okay, I've done this. What do I do with it? How do I get it out there? And then, so along with Anchor, they've actually got a tool called Soundtrap. Soundtrap is for musicians and podcasters, and it's owned by Spotify, much like Anchor. So it's like, just when I use all my Google, wait, okay, are you Android or iPhone?
Man, I feel like we're just gonna keep going. I got an Android, so
okay. At least we're on the same boat there. Yeah.
Wow, I was expecting something else. All right. Wow.
Although that can be contentious amongst creators, because I know Apple has a lot of tools that do make life a little bit easier, but nonetheless, I don't even know where I was going with that.
Well, I'll jump in real quick. What I was going to say, Apple's great for their products they have, but the problem is, at least that I find, is that they don't play well with anything else. Like, unless you have all Apple, it's like all Microsoft too. Unless you continue having all those same programs, they're not going to work outside of that.
I think that's what I was going for, is like the whole concept of like living in one ecosphere, everything kind of works together. Much like Google does, Spotify does the same for podcasters with having tools like Anchor and having Soundtrap. So Soundtrap is a cloud-based digital audio workstation that, in my opinion, does way more than alternatives. I do use Audacity, which again is a free program, and there's a lot that you can do with Audacity. But what Soundtrap has built into it is a lot of samples, loops, sound effects that are free. There's also a paid subscription where you can use more of that stuff. And if you're a music creator, you can also take like samples and beats and that sort of thing and loop those in if you wanted to. So I found that right off the hop, and I've been using it ever since. So even though the show's grown, I've purchased better equipment and have sort of a better setup than I did when it was just a USB microphone inside of a little foam box that I made. So things have evolved past that point. I actually, for guest interviews, I would put it up on a laundry basket, so it was at the right elevation. Anyways, things have changed, but I'm still using a lot of those tools. And then it's the behind the scenes tools that I use too. I know you're a Canva user. Canva is just like, here's where I start gaining favor with a lot of companies. I've shit talked a lot, and now I'm talking about companies where I'm like, use these. These are great. Canva is amazing.
It's been a nice ad for Anchor and now Canva.
Yeah,
that was the kind of thing I want to talk about. It's like the social media side too.
Oh man,
like I love your artwork. Like no joke, your artwork and your social media work looks amazing. Like I'm trying to like get my level up. Like honestly, like watching your stuff is like really inspired me to like do better production. Like I'm making. I got some videos coming out, like just teaser videos where like I've actually put more effort into making everything look super professional instead of me just like, yeah, I mean, there's a picture, it works, but like, no, we got flames, we got moving images, we got video, we got all this stuff to make it look
science, good. Man, flames make everything cooler.
Exactly, and I love using like blue flames because super cool radio. It just works so well. But yeah, with Canva, like I have Canva Pro. I know you're working on getting Canva Pro. Hopefully soon, eventually in a few months.
I'm dying, man. I got that free trial and it's about to run out, and I'm like, I don't know if I can live without it.
I was doing like Canva, the basic Canva for like 6 months. I was like, hey, it works. I don't have all the cool, graphics and videos and all effects and all that stuff. But I was like, I was making it work. And then I was trying to make like a shattered glass logo for a band for one of my videos. And I was like, all right, I need that specific one because that's the only one that looks good. And it was, a pro option. So I was like, all right, I'm just gonna go for it. I'll buy it. And that was, I think, like October. October. And I was like, okay, I'm never going back to the basic Canva because it just everything that I want to make is there.
Yeah, it's so convenient, and like I've been using the free option as well, and it's so robust even as a free tool for what you can do. And I've gotten around a few things. Like if I look for an image and it's a pro level image, I'll just Google something that I want, use that, upload it, you're good to go. And then background, right? Yeah, like I'll always find the cheapest way to do stuff. And then like background remover, like Pro allows you to do background removal, but I would just go to bgremover.com, upload an image, remove it that way, then re-upload it, put it into Canva. And there's a lot more steps. So anything that you can do to save on clicks is really where you want to be. So having it all in one environment, oh my God, it makes life easier. And it helps things get a little bit better and pushes your boundaries a little bit. So I was always using it just for cover art. I would use it to make like some banners for Facebook and stuff like that. But now I'm like, you can do videos in here. You can do audio. You can put together like animations. I'm like, this is way more powerful than any other tool that I'm using. So I may drop a little bit of coin. Like I've still got 5-6 months on the video editing software that I use, but I'm almost willing to kind of eat that and just swing over to Canva and just do everything in there because it is so much better. The intro videos that you can make are so powerful. And yeah, I'm not sponsored by Canva yet. Hopefully soon.
I hope I am too, because I'm going to say this right now. If any like starting out podcasters or anyone who hasn't really explored too much of what's out there, definitely check out Canva. Like it's great. They give you like the Instagram posts, which we kind of both share, the same kind of feelings about Instagram. I won't go too far into that. But like for all my posters, I used to just make like poster size or like digital poster size, and that would work on Facebook and Twitter, but it wouldn't work on IG without, looking like this much of it.
Yeah.
Now I just use all my flyers as Instagram posts, and it fits on every platform. And I think that's really helped. It actually makes everything look a lot better.
Yeah. Instagram is one of those tools, and I know you didn't want to get into it too much, but as far as social media goes, Instagram is that one that's still so elusive to me. I can't wrap my head around it. For instance, I do my podcast trailers when I've got a new episode. Those drop on Tuesday. New episode drops on Thursday. And I film my videos in 16:9 because nobody wants to look at a 4:3 square. So when I upload it to Instagram, because it does allow you to do that now, it defaults to the 4:3 and I just change it to 16:9. Cool.
Yep.
And I always create YouTube thumbnails. So those are in 16:9, allows you to update those thumbnails. Cool. Then you post it, your video's in 16:9, but your thumbnail is in 4:3 and you get like half of what was supposed to be there. And you're like, why? Why does this look like crap? Why is this not easy to do? And if you go over to Facebook and use like the creator tool in Facebook, which ties to Instagram, it doesn't allow you to upload a video over 1 minute. So it too is kind of useless. So it's been a frustrating one to get that one figured out. But oddly enough, I get engagement through there in a different way, but the engagement is still pretty good through Instagram. Yeah.
Well, I didn't want to talk about the issues of Instagram and Facebook, but now since we're here, I've experienced the same things. Like the video part's fine, but like it's getting the thumbnails, and like usually it's like a picture of the band and all you see is like their like neck down, like their head gets chopped off or something stupid. And it's like, it's so hard to even like make thumbnails for that because like you still have to guess, because even if you get a 4:3, it could look it still messes it up somehow. I don't know how. It's an art form, I guess, to be that bad at that. But yeah, that like Instagram and Twitter are just I have to obviously you have to use it to grow. You have to use other platforms. Like I exclusively started out on Facebook, and that's why like my audience is big on Facebook. But like I don't have anything else anywhere else, or not as much, just because I only started that like less than a year ago. And the problem is on Twitter for me. I write so much. I write thought out descriptions and everything. And on Twitter, I get like maybe 2 sentences, and it's like, oh, sorry, you're out of characters.
You know, one thing I will say about Twitter forcing you to have fewer characters is you realize how much fluff you put in your descriptions. I'm not saying you, but for me, I do the same. And then I'm like, all right, I don't know, what are they now? 240 characters? They used to be 140. But yeah, it's like, okay, the 2 or 3 of the most important things, that's it, because I need room to hashtag, I need room to bands and that sort of thing. So yeah, you learn to be succinct with Twitter.
Yeah, and just like social media in general, it's a game. And honestly, it's a game. I lose pretty much all the time. It's just figuring out like what works. What, like, to me, the thing that I'm really trying to focus on is like getting my engagement up with stuff on all the platforms. And I do okay with that. But I that's like the challenge I find is like I can have an amazing product and then it reaches 8 people.
Yeah. Yeah, I know what you mean about that. Like, social media is very perplexing. And I know a lot of the bands that we listen to, a lot of bands that we interview, they're also kind of hit or miss with social media. The ones that are hit and they've got 45,000 followers and they get 200 likes on every post that they put up, I found this unusual correlation where their episodes don't get a lot of listens. Meanwhile, there's a band with like 8 followers on Facebook who blows away all of your listens in the past. And so it doesn't match up for me. Like, there's social media, but that almost exists as a separate entity from the product. Some bands have it figured out. A good example is Spirit Box. I think they're a band that figured out social media like nobody's business. They managed to market themselves and become bigger than any band in modern metal landscape throughout this pandemic, and without playing live music. But they're like magic. That's like the one once in a while thing that comes along, and they got it figured out pretty quickly. But a lot of others struggle with it. I've talked to bands who are like, I don't do social media. I could put posters up on there all day long, but he's like, if I hand out posters, put them outside of the club, I get way more people showing up than if I put a poster on Facebook. And I'm like, yeah, I can respect that, man. Like, a little bit of old school. That's how I grew up. I'd walk down, we've got a couple of major roadblocks in Calgary where I'm from that all the clubs are at. That's where you would go to see shows. You just look at any street lamp, any post, any mailbox, and go, okay, I want to go see that band. I want to go see this show. That was social media marketing when I was a teenager. And even to a certain extent today, I'll still look at those posters because concert posters, here I digress again, concert posters are one of those unique art forms that it's like, it doesn't exist anywhere else. Like, movies don't need to market themselves that way. Live performances don't need to market themselves that way, but there's this niche for live music where even bands, huge bands, I don't know, let's say Weezer, they'll put up a poster, or their promoters, their street team will put up posters. And it just seems like, okay, well, we've got this like small local band who's coming to play a show at this, 500 capacity club. Weezer might not be the best example because they are not doing that, but there are other bands that are larger that do things like that, and it's like, oh, what a cool, unique art form to be able to enjoy is concert posters and flyers for shows.
I definitely think so. Like the old school kind of not mentality, but like the ways of doing things. Like, I know if I ever go to like, functions or shows or anything like that, I used to pass out like business cards to people, but like people, what are people in the business can do with business cards. So I switched to giving out Super Cool Radio keychains, and I think that is a better way of doing it because like
that's brilliant.
Yeah, see, I try to think about something. Now I need more keychains, but I'll work on that. I'll have to call up Amazon. Or I guess they probably don't have phones. I'll have to text Amazon. I'm just saying all the corporations today, aren't I? But where I was going with that was that the digital space, the metaverse, if you will, because that's the new term now that people are using for it, it's great, but it only gets you so far. It still needs the human aspect of, I have to actually physically talk to this person, I have to see this band, or this person's a fan of the band, I interviewed this band, here's a keychain, that kind of stuff. And I think you need both. Because I know I was talking to a few different people about that, and we just focus entirely on our digital stuff. But I was like, that's great. It's going to get you, a good amount of places, but you still, because they didn't want to play live shows. And this was kind of like pre-pandemic thing, because they were just doing better online. But I was like, yeah, but you still need to play shows. Is what I'm saying.
Yeah, people want to be able to enjoy the atmosphere at a rock show and see that band that they've been listening to live. I've talked to a few bands that are like that too, and I think for them it's a bit of a necessary evil, where they're like, I would rather stay at home on a Saturday night and be with my family and sit down at my computer and track my guitar that way than ever go to a live show or ever play a live show. But we know that we have to. We know that that's how we market ourselves. That's how we get out there. I think too, a lot of people that are, I'll say our age, which is a broad scope, but as you start to, get into your mid-20s and early, sometimes late 30s, you just realize that, if you're in a band right now that isn't on a major label, that isn't getting, 1 million streams a month, you're doing it for the love of music. You're not doing this to become world famous and travel everywhere and play out sold out venues and that sort of thing. You're just doing it because you love music. And I almost appreciate that mentality more than when I talk to folks who, regardless of their age, they just don't kind of get the reality of the music world and the industry that they're in, and trying to become this viable resource in this music industry that it's like, there's 1 million bands that sound like you, and only 2 of them are making it anywhere.
Yeah, it's a very interesting industry, but it's also a very difficult industry. For all the bands like Spirit Box to make it and go places, there's probably 100 other bands who didn't.
Yeah.
And it's an unfortunate side of it, but also the people I think we've both interviewed, they do it because they love it, and you can really see that when we interview them. They could play some great shows, they could have some great shows and stuff, but you could tell it's like they're not in it necessarily for the money. They're in it because this is what they want to do. If they could live their dream of doing this and still getting paid, that would be amazing. But they kind of understand the reality of it too.
Yeah, I think that's a big part of it is, if you're doing something because you love it and you're passionate about it, and sure, we all want to make money off of what we're doing, the content that we're creating. But if that's not your primary goal and you can just have fun with it, then you might end up doing this for the rest of your life and never seeing a penny, or for every once in a while something clicks and maybe you get a sponsor, maybe you get picked up on some sort of syndication, maybe Spotify's like, hey, we want your podcast exclusively on our platform, whatever it might be. Cool. But in the meantime, I'm just going to kind of keep doing my thing. In comparing it to radio, I love radio, I love that world, but terrestrial radio, commercial radio can be really frustrating, especially for somebody like me. And I think for you, because you've also mentioned that you hate country music.
What, were you reading my messages today?
Right.
I just said I'm not a fan. Don't make me out there and trash everything that I've done on this show already. Come on. Anyway,
just as an example, if I was a broadcast DJ and I ended up on a country radio station, I got a real tough time selling that I love the brand new, I don't even know what's relevant, the Chicks or something like that. I don't know. and trying to get excited about that, and then playing 12 minutes of commercials in between this music I don't enjoy, it's kind of soul sucking. So then you pivot over to podcasting. We can do whatever we want. We can say whatever we want. I'm playing whatever I want. It's like, private pirate radio here. You just have so much more control over it. And like, I'm not going to make any money in radio unless I become Howard Stern, which we know, again, is like a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. So why not do what I'm doing for free and just enjoy doing it a lot more? And that's kind of where that cutoff for me, like I was doing radio and trying to like get onto bigger stations that just, it wasn't panning out. And so when I was like, well, I'm not making any money doing this anyways, it's not going anywhere, and I'm playing stuff I don't like in commercials for products I don't support, I'll just do it over here and have way more fun with it. And that's what it's become with podcasting. And relating that back to kind of what we were talking about, if a band or a creator, a Twitch streamer, a YouTuber, whatever, gets into it just for the love of what they're doing, and it happens to work out, like that's gravy, man. That's what we want for all of our creator friends. But if it doesn't happen, at least we can enjoy their content in the meantime and have a real good time.
And that's a great way of looking at it. And that's the same way I do with my stuff. I kind of been embracing definitely this season of kind of just doing whatever I want and not really worrying too much about, this is not going to attract sponsors, or, can't play this music and stuff. Because, like, I think once you, even on podcasting, like, if you start getting sponsors and stuff, like, anyone giving you money for stuff has has a say in it.
Yeah.
Because it's like, oh, you can't play this music or you're going to lose this sponsorship. I don't have any sponsorships and I don't make money. So I can do pretty much whatever I want. I can listen to myself and go, you know what? I'm playing this. Or I'm going to, make this kind of artwork. Or, I'm going to have blood dripping from this poster because it looks cool.
Yeah.
Blue flames, like I said. And kind of the cool thing, like, because I've met a few different radio personalities. I applied to many radio jobs. And never heard back, by the way, but just want to emphasize that.
Yeah, it's an industry that really puts themselves on a pedestal, and they're going to put, if you do hear back and you want an on-air job, they're going to put you through hoops, and you need to have years of experience. You need to have a demo tape that's going to knock them away, and then they're going to turn around and they're going to pay you minimum wage.
And honestly, I've seen that with a lot of jobs I've been applying, like in the marketing field and stuff, and even just like a social media manager. I applied to one job. At least I actually heard back and they said no, which was fine. But but like some jobs, I saw one. This was a stocker at a food bank. They wanted an associate's degree to pay them $11 an hour. I'm like, how do you expect to get people for this? And that's kind of like what I see with the radio too. Is they want like a 4-year degree, 4 years experience to pay you $12 an hour.
Yeah.
I'm like,
and make you work a midnight shift.
Yeah. And it's like, I honestly, I would be open to it if you ever got back to me. But at the same time, it's like, well, I don't think you're going to get back to me anyway. So why do I care? I'm just going to do what I want. But it's that kind of stuff that always amazes me. It's just how much qualifications you need to make less than doing another job. Like you can, I don't know. I saw a gas station hiring for like $15 an hour. I was like, no qualifications for 15 or a bunch of for 12. It doesn't make sense to me.
It's one of those things that, like, my hope with the pandemic is that it changes the way employers think about their roles, the people that they employ, the qualifications that they require. And for a brief moment in time, it really seemed like that was going that way. But then, restrictions start to ease, things get back to normal. It's like, oh, need you back in the office. We need you here 9 to 5. You need to, wear a suit to work every single day. We're going to put out postings that, nobody qualifies for. And if we find that one person that qualifies for it, we're going to pay them dog shit. It just seems to be the way that these things go. And it's so frustrating seeing things just revert back to the way that they were, because so many people are stuck in this archaic mindset of work has to be these set hours, Monday to Friday. We can't be flexible. We're going to give you some give away great vacation time that you can never use because you're always having to work. And if you're not there, then the whole company falls apart or whatever it might be. it's kind of bullshit. So the nice thing, like, okay, put ourselves in an ideal world and we're making money to do this, what we're doing right now. We set our own hours, we set our own schedules, we set our own
11 a.m.
Right, wake up at 11 a.m., shave whenever you feel like.
If you feel like it.
If you feel like it, like, do whatever you want. Like, that's a dream, man, if that ever comes through. So for me, my goal is not to make money with this. But if my goal was to make money, it's not because I want to drive a Lamborghini. That's never going to happen. It's because I would love to give up this 9-to-5 grind, this commuting 2 hours to and from a job site, this, needing to be overqualified for a job that really anybody could do.
No, you have to have these qualifications to do this job.
And you need so many years experience. Like, I know when I came out of college and I started applying radio station after radio station after radio station, it's like, well, what experience do you have? It's like, well, I just spent 2 years in college, and before that I was in high school. I don't have real life experience, but I need to get that experience. So if you employ me, I guarantee you I'm going to work my ass off so I get that experience. Whereas somebody who's got 40 years of experience, they're going to walk in there and they're going to go, I set my own rules and I'm not going to work that hard because I know what I'm worth and I can go anywhere I want. So it's this real paradox that we're kind of stuck in right now. And it's frustrating whether you're brand new to whatever career and lifestyle choice you choose, or you're seasoned, you've been in it for a long time. It's frustrating at either end of the gamut. And I know that kind of diverges a little bit from kind of the topics at hand, but I think it does wrap back in and kind of talks nicely to like what we wish we could be doing.
Yeah, that was a nice wrap up and tie in, because that's where I was going with it. I know we took a little bit of a detour around some backwoods around.
But we got there. Tracks. We got there.
We got there for sure. And that's pretty much what I was saying is that just you need the experience to do stuff, but how do you get the experience if no one's going to hire you?
Yeah.
That's kind of the thing of like, they want experience, but they don't want to compromise. So.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a real bummer. I know coming out of college, my most viable option was to work in the U.S. I did my practicum in St. Louis, KMOX there, and the station director had actually, shortly after I got home, he had moved to Chicago and took over WGN. So it's like, these are big names, and he was 100% willing to bring me down. But what held me up was the visa process and being Canadian. And, there needs to be some sort of proof that you're doing a job that an American can't fill, which isn't the case. Meanwhile, pivot back to Canada, and I'm applying in small markets. This isn't WGN in Chicago. This is KM whatever the crap in Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan.
That's a good name.
Right? KM whatever the crap. That's going to be my new radio station. In Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan. And they're like, well, we require you to have like 7 years in major market. It's like, you're not even a major market. Why do you require that? I'm 21 years old. How do you expect me to have any of that? I could go work at WGN in Chicago if the visa thing would work out. It's not a fair comparison, but it just seems so much more willing, at least to support the career I wanted to be in larger markets in the US than it did in Canada. So, and then I quickly realized I could, work an overnight shift at a crappy radio station making minimum wage, or I could get into telecom and start at $35,000 and work my way up from there and have, a set schedule and a salary and benefits and, all those things that you don't enjoy in sort of that creative space, or if you work for yourself. So there's ups and there's downs, but I think if we could all just do the thing that we love and make enough to support a lifestyle and a family off of it, I'd be a lot less stressed.
Oh, I do. I feel you on that. But as we're almost an hour into this now, I'm going to debut a brand new segment here on Super Cool Radio. I told you about it, but I didn't tell you what we're doing.
No, I'm a little bit nervous.
You should be. This is either going to be fun or a disaster. So here is the game. It is now time to guess the headliner. That is right. The rules are very simple. I will list a few bands who played a show together or had our tour together, and you have to guess the headliner.
Oh, this is good. It reminds me of playing The Price is Right. And growing up and you call in sick for elementary school and you got to stay home and eat soup and watch The Price is Right.
Yeah.
Amazing experience. But being Canadian always made it tough. It's like, oh, we've got this brand new box of Tide. How much is it? And you're like, oh, $12. And then they unveil it's like $4.99. You're like, what the hell? Where are these people shopping?
In the U.S. market.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, you nailed it. I would do that too when I was growing up.
Best thing ever.
I'm sick. Chicken noodle soup, Price is Right. Bob Barker for me.
Bob Barker was my man. He was my babysitter when I was homesick. That's for sure.
Dude, yes, he's true talent, true legend, can never be duplicated. And it's kind of funny, like people don't watch, like they don't look back at history of like the same tactics he used. Like you don't see that anymore. Like the building suspense. Like, oh, hey, what would you do with that car? What would you do with that money? And then unveil it. True art form that is lost.
Well, and there was a little bit, and I know this digresses because you want to get into that other segment, but there was a little bit with Bob Barker where you're like, this dude doesn't seem like he should be hosting a game show. This guy seems like, he should be running a Fortune 500 company or at least selling me really expensive insurance I don't need. So what is his deal? Why is he doing this? Is it because he wants to make sure that he gets his message of like spay and neuter your pets out there? Like, is that really what this end game is? So he's always a bit of a mystery to me. With Drew Carey, it's like, well, nobody else will employ you. I get why you're doing this. Yeah, there goes Drew Carey as an option for a guest on my show, I guess.
Oh, man. Oh, I hope no one sees everything we've said in this, man. All right. So with that great statement out of the way, all right, it's now time to guess the headliner. Two of these shows I've actually been to.
Ooh.
Just to let you know. So this is not like one-off specialty shows where they just, like Christmas shows or something stupid where they, Christmas is not stupid. Oh,
geez. Drew Carey sucks. You're attacking Christmas. This is whole nother level.
Yeah, we're getting canceled for sure. So it's not specialty shows, like that kind of stuff, or festival shows where like, oh, so-and-so opened for Iron Maiden, but they played at 2:00, or what, stuff like that. None of that. These were actual shows or tours.
Okay.
All right. The first one, for context, this was in Chicago. I believe it was either 2016 or 17. I don't exactly remember when I went. But this is a show I went to. So, out of the three options, pick the headliner.
Okay.
We got Falling in Reverse, Papa Roach, or A Day to Remember.
Okay. Falling in Reverse should never headline anything. So I'm hoping that they were an opener. Papa Roach obviously is the most commercially successful out of all three of those bands, but A Day to Remember really had their moment in the spotlight, especially around that time. But would Papa Roach open for them? I think we're going to stick with Papa Roach. Papa Roach is the headliner here.
I did like your logic. It was A Day to Remember. You're very close. Now, you're funny. You said Falling in Reverse and never opened. Ice Nine Kills opened for Falling in Reverse when I saw him in 2019.
That's a travesty. That should never happen.
All right. So now this next one, so you're 0 for 1 right now.
Okay.
Over. But this next one, 50-50 chance. I couldn't find any more information on this. So the context, this is 1997.
Oof, that's before you were born.
No, that was the year I was born. Come on.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Come on.
All right.
Like
1997, we got a baby Matthew. All right, I'm on.
Yeah. Well, depending on when this was, I was born in December. So barely 1997. I just said, you know what? I don't want to see 1998. I'm just going to show up. Anyway, U2, Rage Against the Machine.
Oh, God. Those two are on the same bill together?
Yes, in 1997, which I find, I'll explain why I find it interesting after I let you answer.
So it's funny, like growing up in the 90s, 12 years before you were born, when I was born, Rage Against the Machine was certainly popular in their niche, but I really don't think Rage got popular with the masses until the 2000s. Like guerrilla radio hit and people were all of a sudden like, oh my God, look at this band. Whereas U2 always had their following. And I think continued to be popular enough until they forced that album into your iTunes in the 2000s that people were like, who the hell are these guys? Why? So I'd say probably at the time U2 was the headliner.
You are correct.
Oh, that hurts. Oh, I mean, if it was U2 opening up for Falling in Reverse, then that would be a little bit better.
Like Ronnie Radke, it's like he's a sketchy and questionable individual, which we won't get into. But yeah, you are right, because I forgot when, because that was, I think 1999 was Battle Los Angeles, I want to say, which that's early 2000. I don't remember exactly.
I believe it came out as I was moving from junior high to high school.
And that's when and I was, in diapers. But anyway.
Still are. It's amazing.
To make you feel a little older. But yeah, if it was like 1999 or 2000, I think Rage probably would have been the more logical answer. But 1997, where they were building momentum, I think they started in the early 90s, I want to say.
Yeah.
Not huge.
Late 80s. Sorry, Rage we're talking about?
Rage.
Yeah. I think there was a little bit of the 80s, but yeah, 90s was their decade, which is weird because a lot of those 90s bands weren't as popular then as they either are now or were later in their careers. Nirvana was really the only one. Nirvana and Pearl Jam maybe were the only ones at their time that really seemed to hit critical mass during their time.
And Smashing Pumpkins, like 1995, Smashing Pumpkins.
Yeah, I would say a big turnaround for them was Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness.
Yeah. Like, and then they messed that up a few years later. So
yeah, what came after that? Ava Adore or whatever that album was.
Which, not great. Oh crap! Smashing Pumpkins after me.
Right. I love the Pumpkins. I grew up on the Pumpkins. I still listen to the Pumpkins. But oddly enough, the other day I was like, I haven't listened to the Pumpkins in a while. I was watching a movie and 1979 was in it. I was like, I haven't listened to them in a long time. So I just went onto YouTube Music and put on a Smashing Pumpkins playlist. And I happened to be at the gym. So this was probably my first mistake. But I was like, nope, not fast enough. Skip. Yeah. No, don't like this song. Skip. Nope, not that one. Skip. And then you get to something like Zero or Bullet with Butterfly Wings. You're like, oh, I dig these songs. And then you go into something else and you're like, oh, okay. Yeah. So they're one of those bands where it's like Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness is probably the most complete album cover to cover, especially from Smashing Pumpkins. But everything beyond that is like, well, just give me the hits. I'm good with that.
Honestly, I think I like Gish and Siamese Dream. Like,
for sure.
They have hits on there, but I think even kind of the deeper cuts off there are still good. But I do see what you're saying with that stuff, because some of this stuff gets a little weird. No dig on SP, but some of the stuff.
Billy Corgan's a strange guy.
Yeah, he is. He's ironically from Chicago too. So
yeah, that's right.
Yeah, but he's kind of really odd, and then he owns wrestling companies, and he may have been a predatory lender in Impact Wrestling. Oh, we're not going to get into that. And moving on. So number 3, there is 4 options. I went from 2 to 4. This is a show I went to Context last year.
Okay.
So it is Living Color, Everclear, Wheatus, and Hoobastank.
Jesus Christ. They were all on the same bill?
That was the complete show, yes.
Holy God. What a mess that is. Really? Oh, well, I don't want to shit talk anybody. For those who don't know Wheatus,
what are you talking? We've been doing this for an hour.
I know, that's true. It just seems so weird because it's like, okay, Everclears are in their place in the world. I did see Everclear, and they were the headliners, but I think Yellow Card opened up for them. And don't get me started on Yellow Card. But Everclears are in their place. Living Color, there's even not even an argument there. They are iconic. They made so many strides for music in general, but specifically heavy music. So no contest there. What's going to throw me for a loop is Hoobastank and Wheatus. Both bands, I would argue, are one-hit wonders. I did get into Hoobastank. Obviously, when Crawling in the Dark came out, everybody was listening to that. I was like, oh, this is the next form of heavy music. This is our next Incubus. Spoiler alert, they were not.
I didn't know both those bands were even still around in 2021. No data on them. I just didn't know.
And what was Wheatus? Is that Teenage Dirtbag?
It is, which people credit that to Weezer, and that is not right.
No. It might have been the similarity in band names. You got Wheatus and Weezer. I guess to the untrained ear is very similar.
Yeah, take that drink of water. Think about this.
This one's a thinker. Okay, I'm gonna discredit. I'm gonna put Hoobastank and Wheatus. They've got to be openers. That's like, please, no, dear God, don't be the headliners. Between Everclear and Living Color, I would say Everclear is more widely known, more widely accepted between, rocker guys and soccer moms. I think Everclear is the headliner here.
You are right. You are right. You are 2 for 3 now. Surprise.
I'm getting back.
So now I'm going to turn up the heat.
Okay. Which is ironic because my furnace is running. I don't know if that's coming through, but good old Canada.
I'm surprised I'm not hearing this. Maybe because I talk loud. Maybe because we're podcasters. We just ignore everything that's not the person we're talking to.
This is very true.
All right. This is 1982. So
before either of us were born, so that's good.
Yeah. See, we're both even on that. All right. 38 Special, Iron Maiden, and Rainbow.
Oh.
I don't know how familiar you are with any of those, but.
So Iron Maiden, again, iconic metal band, has done so much for heavy music. I will argue we're not as big in 1982 as they even are today. Oddly enough, they're one of those bands that have gotten more popular over the years than they started out as. 38 Special, nothing burger then, nothing burger now. Rainbow, I mean, you got Ronnie James Dio here, man. Like, that is like creme de la creme for metal guys, for iconic voices of many generations. It's got to be Rainbow, man. They opened this, or they headlined this bad boy.
Well, actually, it was 38 Special.
Jesus.
And Rainbow opened. It was Rainbow, Iron Maiden, 38 Special.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Okay. Well.
All right. Now you're 50-50 right now.
Okay. This one is like for all the ducats here.
I'll just tell you. I won't. Context, this was in the late 90s. I did not get an exact date, but late 90s.
Okay.
We got Bad Religion.
All right.
The Lemonheads.
Oh, okay.
Tony Bennett. I'm not. This is for real. This is what happened.
Like, oh, what was it? The Sesame Street was, which one of these things doesn't belong? That's probably the worst rendition of that, but none of those things belong at all. Tony Bennett, I mean, Tony Bennett's got to be the headliner for anything. This dude is just like selling out shows even nowadays. And Lemonheads, I think Mrs. Robinson was like the one song that we got from them.
Was that them? I don't know.
They did the cover of it, and that's what made them famous. Yeah. I don't think they've ever done anything else before or past that point. And then Bad Religion, I mean, I would certainly go with Bad Religion because Bad Religion is like, I grew up on Bad Religion. I still listen to Bad Religion. Bad Religion is like the rainbow of punk rock. But yeah, Tony Bennett's got to be the headliner here. Whatever bizarre world this is.
Well, no, Bad Religion headlined.
Okay.
Tony Bennett, all right. Lemonhead's Bad Religion.
I'm not upset about Bad Religion headlining. I'm just upset about whoever put this show together. Like, how do you get Tony Bennett fans in the same room as Bad Religion? Like, Lemonhead fans and Bad Religion fans, okay. I'm seeing a little bit of correlation here, but Tony Bennett fans are going to be like, whoa, what is this loud music? We can't handle this noise.
Tony Bennett's kid, his son, was the person who put that show together. He wanted to get Tony Bennett into the spotlight as newer bands in the 90s to help his image. So opening for a punk band completely makes that possible and right.
Yeah, man, that is just throwing darts at a very large dartboard that has everything from Tony Bennett to Mayhem on it. Like that would be a lineup. Tony Bennett and Mayhem.
I feel like some churches would burn and people would die, but that is justified. I can definitely say that. But so 2 for 5, not great, but not bad. So that's done.
It wasn't worth anything. There was no points anyways. I didn't get a prize.
It's all made up, and the points don't matter. Just like whose line is it anyway?
We do a lot of callbacks to Drew Carey here.
I know. Well, you started talking crap about him, so
I did love the Drew Carey show. I'll put that out there.
Oh, see, I didn't even like that.
No, he was funny when he was fat.
Most people are.
It's true.
Some
it's
people
true.
lose the luster when they lose the pound, so maybe that's why I'm packing on my weight. I gotta be more funny.
Yeah, that'll improve the street cred for funniness.
One of my favorite scenes of the Drew Carey show is Henry Rollins showing up on it. I don't know if you've ever seen that segment.
I'm sure I probably did. Yeah.
Yeah, which Henry Rollins, he's one of my favorite musicians anyway. So seeing him, and he's actually very funny too. So
yeah,
it helps out.
That would be an interesting, like, because I know Henry Rollins does a lot of like the speaking tours and that sort of thing. Him and Drew Carey on the same bill.
I think we're onto something. We have no way of financing this, so we have no idea what we're doing.
No.
But I think we're onto something. So if anyone steals this, no one's going to come after you.
Yeah, you heard it here. Copywritten. We are putting together the Rollins Carey tour.
We might work on that name.
Headliner, opening act, Craig Ferguson.
If he's allowed back.
I don't think he is.
I'm surprised I saw him on like a 9:00 game show that was before like midnight, because I don't think he was ever allowed before.
That's how 9:00 usually works, yeah.
Yeah, I'm very surprised. He's a very funny guy. I do like him.
Yeah.
Definitely, he got away with saying a lot of stuff that you definitely can't say of and may have aged a little bit poorly, but I still find it funny.
There's an interesting landscape out there. There's certain people who can continue to say things and get away with it. Yep. There's people who say stuff and instantly get canceled. And then there's like that in between, like Dave Chappelle. You can say stuff and people are going to try and cancel you, but you just don't give a shit anyway. So you just keep doing what you're doing, and Joe people Rogan eventually get over it. Yeah, Joe Rogan to a certain extent. I feel like a lot of people have just kind of
guests, though. It's not. He doesn't play a whole lot. It's more who he has on, I think.
Yeah, I don't know. I never was a big Joe Rogan fan, but if I wasn't tired of him before the pandemic, I'm certainly tired of him during and after the pandemic. Look at that now. I just like talk down the biggest podcast host out there.
Man, we are hitting all the high spots.
Knock them all off. Can we touch on like Mariah Carey or Madonna or something like that? Like that'll be our next step.
Or Beyonce.
We don't touch Beyonce. But I will say, last night I was watching the wildcard game, Monday night wildcard game. You got the Rams and the Cardinals, and they're showing all the celebrities in the stands and cool. Yeah, Kyrie Irving's there, and you know, you got all these guys. And then they pan to Jay-Z. And they didn't put his name up right away. And I was like, is that Whoopi Goldberg? And then they put up Jay-Z, and I was like, oh, man, this dude has completed this weird transformation into Whoopi Goldberg.
I have to see that. I have not seen that. I'm going to have to check that out because I haven't seen him lately. Honestly, I probably haven't seen him since like 2012.
Well, and like, there's never a bad thing I can say about Beyonce. Like, even as a rock and metal guy, I'm like, Beyonce, she's the queen, man. Like, she belongs at the top. She's got an amazing voice. She ages like a fine wine. But Jay-Z, like, really? Him? Okay.
We're just hitting everybody.
Yeah. I never had a chance of booking Jay-Z on my show anyway. So.
Well, now after this, no.
Yeah. Yeah,
You
easy target.
probably had a chance. Now you don't.
I might get Beyonce though. So
That's true. You didn't say a lot of good to see. I see the way you're working. But like, talk about guests and stuff. As I kind of wrap up this interview, I'm having a great time chatting with you, so I'm probably gonna hold you for a while.
yeah, that's fine.
You got nothing. You're probably getting paid for this anyway.
Yeah, nothing going on.
But how do you go about booking guests? Like, how do you reach out? Like, what do you do? What do you say? That kind of stuff.
Guests have been an interesting journey for me. So I started off the journey with guests on a site called matchmaker.fm, which is the absolute worst name for a podcast community that I've ever heard, because it looks like I'm on a dating site.
It sounds like a knockoff Tinder app.
It really does. So I had to like lay the groundwork early with my wife. And I was like, look, I'm getting emails. I'm on an app. It's called matchmaker.fm. It has nothing to do with me like looking for, I don't know what that one is where it's like, oh, do you want to be in a polygamous relationship? And it's like, no. Well, we have the app for you. It's nothing like that, but it sounds like that.
We should start that app, man. We're just coming up with great ideas, aren't we?
I feel like it was shortly after Christian Mingle came out where I was like, meet like-minded Christians. And then they were like, hey, you want to fuck around with a lot of women?
Yeah.
Check out this app. Yeah. But that's not what Matchmaker is. There's a lot of dudes on there, actually. Lots of sweaty dudes like myself. So I started on there and started to it kind of pairs you with people. This really sounds like a dating app. Started to pair you with people that, are similar interests. Big one being music. So there's a few artists on there. There's a lot of podcasters and that sort of thing. So kind of dabbled around with that. And predominantly in season 2, did most of my bookings through Matchmaker. But then what was really great is things started to change where it's like I'd interview a band and they're like, hey, have you checked out this band? No, I'll go check them out. And then you check them out and you email them and you're like, hey, would love to have you on the show. They go, yes. And you're like, holy crap. So then you bring them on and they're like, hey, have you heard of this band? Or we toured with this band, or we're doing a split album with this band. So you start to kind of gather all these names and just start to fire things out there. So at this point, I'm starting to feel pretty good. And I'm still on Matchmaker, but I'm not using it. Periodically, there'll be a guest who messages through there, which is cool. But it's oddly become this like word of mouth. People have started to reach out to me, as bands post your episode. You may not get traction on that like social media post, but for some reason somebody will listen to it and they'll be like, hey, I'd love to be on your show. I'm in X, Y, and Z band. And I say I don't turn down anybody, but there have been 2 that I've turned down. One was very respectful. It was a promoter who had reached out. She says, hey, I'm promoting this R&B artist, and very talented in his own right. But I was like, the music just doesn't gel. Like I've gone a little bit out of scope. I've had folk artists on the show, some lighter, more contemporary rock and that sort of thing. But this was just so far beyond what I would promote. And again, it's hard for me to get excited about that stuff. I don't even know what to ask an R&B artist. Like, hey, where did you find the sample that you used in that song? How did you find so many large-breasted women to be in your video? Those would be the kind of questions I ask them because I don't know what the hell else to ask. So very respectful. She was like, no, I understand. And then she kind of turned the script and she's like, well, if you have any artists who are looking for promotion, let me know. I'm like, okay, cool. The other one was somebody who messaged me off of Matchmaker, and they compared themselves, I believe, to Prince, David Bowie, and I want to say Dio was at the top of that.
That's an interesting combination.
Very, very interesting. So you're like, all right, my expectations are very high at this point.
Yeah.
The music video was shot on probably like a handy cam from the mid 90s. And I don't want to say like that's a bad thing, because there's a lot of cool things that bands have done with like old school camcorders that make their videos actually pretty cool. This was not it. And the music was a mix between like, I don't know, man. Like it was, he was like Kid Rock. But like if Kid Rock had zero talent, and I'm not defending Kid Rock here because I think Kid Rock is terrible. I know that there might be fans present, but
You're talking to one.
right? Like he was Kid Rock, but he was so bad that the music was laughable. And at first I was like, do I email this guy and go like, hey, is this a parody band? Are you trying to like, make fun of this music? And then I sat back and kind of looked through his social media posts and all that stuff and like took himself 100% seriously. And I couldn't. So I ghosted him and I felt kind of bad about that. But other than that, like I haven't turned anybody down. The traction in terms of like bands reaching out has been so good lately. And then, I know you work with a lot of promoters and we've talked to some of the same promoters and you shared some guests and promotion companies. But once you're kind of in with them, then they just start to send you more and more acts. And that's fantastic. That's the best relationship. Right from the beginning, I've worked with, I always screw up their name. It's LMS UK, but the way that it shows up is like, I'm suck. And if anybody from LMS UK listens to this, I know that they changed their branding and their logo, so it doesn't look like that anymore. But when they first messaged me, I was like, how do I say this? Like, it looks like I'm suck media, and it's not. It's LMS UK. They've been fantastic. They've sent over so many good guests, and not all their guests are strictly rock. Haven't really had any metal from them, had a little bit of punk rock from them. But like they've been so good and just really from the beginning. So they've been great. Kill Sound Productions, now that I'm working with, you've worked with for a while. Holy crap. Like they're amazing. Maggie's amazing. So it's just like making those relationships now. And yeah, that's worked out pretty well. So I don't fish as much for guests as I used to. They just kind of come a little bit more organically now, but still every once in a while I have to kind of hit the trails and campaign for some guests every once in a while. So
yeah, I'm kind of a mix with that. Obviously I've worked with some really great people, obviously Maggie Kill Sound being one of my favorites to work with. But yeah, kind of this year it's been, you know, my struggles with the way this year has gone. I've talked kind of extensively about that kind of behind the scenes. You know the struggle. I know the struggle. It's a time to do everything. I would love to interview all the people who hit me up, and I think you would probably be the same. But like same thing. It's like I need time to obviously edit the videos. But I've reached out to some kind of people who I'd love to have on my show, and hopefully that happens.
You're taking the shots, man. I respect that. You've reached us to some pretty big artists, and yeah, I did that once. I did reach out to Spirit Box last year.
You tell me that.
Yeah, I didn't get any response. I kind of didn't expect to, but I was like, if I can get in before their album releases and they become the biggest name in metal, that'll be great. But just didn't pan out. I've been tempted to just drive out to Vancouver Island and knock on their door because I've got a general approximation of where they are. That's not a little bit stalkerish. Yeah.
That's I wouldn't have meant that on a podcast, but that's okay. We've already buried ourselves enough where pretty much at this point it's just like, we should have expected they say that. But it's always cool. Like sometimes I have reached out. Like I reached out to like September morning, like my 4th interview. I wasn't even like established, and they said, "Sure, we'll do it." So like that's kind of like the stuff. It's like, wow, I didn't expect you to respond, but I appreciate that you did. And I'm glad we were able to do this. It's just the stuff that kind of catches you off guard. I know I kind of have a little bit of lofty, guest goals, maybe for this year or beyond. But it's kind of a mix. I got a lot of people approach me. There's a UK band who reached out to me yesterday. Like I didn't know of before yesterday, but like I'm digging their music. It's like
nice.
Kind of like that, like gritty punk rock kind of stuff. Kind of like almost sleaze rock. Almost you don't see too much of nowadays, but I do enjoy it.
The thing I really appreciate about the UK are two things, I guess, is they're all so proactive. Like even throughout the pandemic, they were working hard to either release new music, have bookings for post-pandemic, book themselves onto podcasts and radio shows. And then the other thing that I really appreciate is there is zero like musical trend. They're not like, hey, we need to hop on the punk rock bandwagon or the hard rock bandwagon, or hey, Ginger and Spirit Box are blowing up the world. We need to do what they're doing. None of that. They just make the music that they love, and they don't even really care about genres, which again is really great. Makes it a little bit tough to describe who they are. You know, even describing that band is a little bit tough. But like, they don't subscribe to the same thing that I think a lot of North American acts and creators kind of subscribe to, where it's like, I still don't want to define genres, but it just makes it easier to say you're a punk rock band, you're a metal band, you're, you know, a groove metal band, whatever.
I think it's easy more like it's not really necessary for us. It's more for the people listening who might not know who this band is. You can at least get an idea. I think that's very like North American marketing to say this band is this, and bands have to kind of fit to that if they want to be marketed on, you know, a bigger scale. I think UK, Europe, I think they're just happy playing music, and like their marketing is different, I think, where it doesn't matter as much. Because I've interviewed quite a few from the UK and Europe. They're like, I don't even know how to describe your band. You know, it's like electronic, but there's metal in there, there's punk rock, and all of this stuff that it's hard to describe like European bands compared to UK and Canada, or compared to America and Canada, in my opinion.
Well, I just feel like there are a lot of breakthrough bands coming from Europe. And I think a lot of it is because of those things that we just described. They can do things, they can be experimental. They don't fall into a specific niche, but it's because it's different. We don't hear a lot of that over here. We hear a band trying to be Godsmack 12 times over, which we've heard 12 times over. And I love Godsmack, so no shit on them. But just like different stuff. And I don't always love it, you know. It might not be for me, but I appreciate what they're doing. I appreciate the effort that they're putting into it, and it's seeming to work. It's seeming to catch on. And what you see is this shift of European bands all of a sudden gaining popularity in the US, where traditionally American bands are at the top.
It is kind of interesting. I know for quite a few bands, and actually for Illusion of Grandeur, which you've interviewed, I've interviewed, they got popular in Europe.
Yeah.
Before getting traction in the US. I know Alice Cooper was that same way. And so it's kind of interesting where bands actually hit, you know. Yeah. And I always find that interesting is like, you know, obviously most of the US bands get big, you know, in the US and then hit Europe. Some bands are kind of the opposite. Just to get traction, like people in Europe, you know, like their music or grab on the music first, while it takes the US market a little bit more to warm up because it could be a little bit different, theatrical, whatever. It's just interesting how that happens. Kind of like with like singles and songs and stuff. Like no dig on Papa Roach. Like obviously, like if you know about Papa Roach, you know Last Resort is like their biggest song. Not necessarily my favorite, even off that album, but like that's what, you know, either people wanted or that's how they pushed the hardest. I don't know. However they did that marketing.
Yeah, man. I still remember that video the day that it came out, and it's like things changed because we were in a new metal environment landscape at that point, and we had really started to get comfortable with Korn. You know, there was some other new metal acts coming up. I never classify Slipknot as new metal. I think that's, I don't want to say that new metal degrades what Slipknot does, but Slipknot is in sort of a category of their own to me. But, you know, they were gaining their traction at that point. Rage Against the Machine was certainly big. Papa Roach offered us something a little bit different without being drastically different, because you still got Jacoby doing the rap thing. You've still got a guitar powered riff type song, even though if it's, you know, borrowed from Iron Maiden.
No, can't prove that.
It's just one of those things that just right time, right place. And if you look back in history, there's a lot of songs that maybe don't stand the test of time, but if you were around in that era or reflect on that era, it's like right time, right place. And that band just happened to hit it. Because Papa Roach had been around. They'd done an album before that. They had some better songs on that album that showed up on Love, Hate, Tragedy that they brought back over. But it's just something about Infest and something about Last Resort. It just hit at the right time. And I remember one of my good buddies, the vocalist in my band at the time, we sort of got hit with Papa Roach and Disturbed. And those were like,
same year,
yeah, those were like Down with the Sickness and Last Resort were everywhere you turned, and they were huge. And we ended up sort of kind of getting into it because I was like, Papa Roach is the next big thing. And he's like, no, Disturbed is the next big thing.
You're both right.
And we were both right. I would say Disturbed certainly had a better career to a certain point and then disappeared. And then Papa Roach has kind of adopted this hybrid, like what Fever 333 is doing right now with sort of having that rap, that
Radio
metal
machine style.
Yeah, reggae. Like they got everything in there. They're doing a lot of cool things, and Papa Roach has kind of adopted that, which has brought their popularity back up to a certain point. But yeah, at that time we were debating those two bands. I was on Papa Roach's side. He was on Disturbed side. I don't think either one of us were wrong, but I think at the time I was probably more right because Down with the Sickness didn't really start to hit people in the way that it did until later on. And now it's on every, party rock album. They played at hockey dressing rooms, like even played on terrestrial radio, which at the time there was no way that they were going to play Down with the Sickness on our local rock radio station.
Yeah. Definitely. Like the thing is, I just saw Disturbed live last year.
Oh wow.
For the first time. And they're amazing. Like David's vocals are incredible. And to do that live, to recreate that live, what he does in the studio is amazing. Like he's got such a unique style for his vocals that no one else, I don't think, can even duplicate it if they really tried and be authentic as he is. And so it was cool. My one complaint, they did not play Voices. That's my favorite song. They did not play it. So hopefully, next time I see them, I will hopefully hear Voices. That's my favorite song. That's like stuff to run, work out to, break stuff to, that kind of thing. That's like all of it.
I've only ever seen them once, and it was when The Sickness dropped. So they weren't that popular. And here's your headliner thing. It was them and Kitty was the headliner.
That's insane.
Right? And maybe it was like the Canadian thing because it's like, Kitty's the only metal band that we have. This is amazing. And I was obsessed with them at that point too.
Very Canadian.
It's a very Canadian thing. We're like, yeah, Kitty. But Disturbed had opened up for them. So they were relatively nobodies. And I remember them just kind of being in the hallways before and after the show. So having those conversations with them. But yeah, that's all we heard was songs off The Sickness because that's all that they had out. So it was a long time ago, but I'm pretty sure that they played Voices at that show.
They probably did. I would almost guarantee that.
Yeah.
But it's kind of funny. The same venue that I saw them at, it was the first actual rock show at the Hard Rock Casino in Indiana, northern Indiana. And now I'm seeing Papa Roach in March at that same venue. So it's kind of funny. We're just talking about both of those bands.
Yeah. Well, and I would argue, like, I haven't seen Papa Roach in almost as many years. They were playing the Warped Tour when Infest came out. And again, nobody knew who they were. And so there we are with Jacoby Shaddix, who was known as Kobe Dick at the time.
Yes, he was.
Yeah. And we're standing there like at the side of the railings, just having a conversation with him. He even threw the microphone to my buddy and he got to sing, I think, what's that song? Snakes or whatever. Later on the album. So he got to sing that with Papa Roach, but nobody knew who they were at that time. But I would venture to say that now that a lot of their stuff post Infest has become a lot more popular, you'll probably get Last Resort and nothing else.
Yeah, probably that and between Angels and Insects.
Yeah, probably.
Too. Which that's a good. Blood Brothers, honestly, one of my favorites. You're probably never going to hear that live from Infest. And maybe Broken Home. I know they bust that out occasionally. Like I think they did that on the 2015 tour. But maybe that's amazing. Yeah,
I guess it'll depend on the crowd and that sort of thing too. Because I feel like they've kind of got this divisive line where it's like there's the early Papa Roach listeners and then there's the current Papa Roach listeners, and there's very few who are in between. Where it's like I personally enjoy what they're doing now. I do prefer what they did then, but I would be okay hearing any and all of it. There's that song that that they did with Maria Brink.
Oh yes, that was Gravity.
Gravity. And like Maria sounds amazing on that song. Like she is certainly miles above anything that's going on there. But there was just something about that song that really hit. I really enjoyed that tune.
I did too. And honestly, this came up while doing my research for bands. For my headliner, my segment that is now coming past. They were on a tour within this moment, and they did not have Maria Brink on Gravity.
Man.
That came across on one of the forums I was on, and it was like, yeah, this is irrelevant, but this is what I saw on tour. I was like, how do you have that happen? It's like I think when Godsmack, I don't know if you're familiar with Stitched Apart, when they went on like a UK tour, they had lead vocalist of Godsmack, who I can't remember right now.
Salierda.
Thank you. He was featured on one of their songs for the new album, and he actually was. When they played the song, he would come out and perform that with them. So I kind of like when that happens, especially if you book a show like that. Come on, if you book a tour like that and you don't have that happen, what are you doing? You're not doing things right. That's like putting Limp Bizkit's Spirit Box together. You're messing up.
Yeah, it's got to be tough for bands when they release a song with a guest vocalist that does incredibly well, but when they play that song live, they don't have that guest vocalist.
You need it.
I know that happened to me, like when I saw Soulfly a number of years ago. They had that song with Corey Taylor called Jump the Fuck Up, but they weren't touring with Slipknot. They weren't here with Slipknot. Corey wasn't there. I had no expectation that Corey was going to come do that song, but that song is like not quite as good without Corey.
Yeah. Kind of funny. I just started listening to Soulfly because I actually met Mark Rizzo I think I told you this last month.
Nice, yeah.
So I started listening to Soulfly and Il Nino, which apparently Joseph's a big fan of Il Nino. So
Il Nino had their time in the spotlight.
Yeah, they're coming back too. They're touring with Drowning Pool coming up soon.
Yeah, okay. Drowning Pool's
what's your beef now?
Okay, so I love Drowning Pool. I love their first album, but I feel like when their vocalist died, the band should have rebranded. They are one of those bands where it was entirely dependent on him, because everything since that point hasn't sounded like that Drowning Pool, and that's the Drowning Pool I want. They've done some good stuff. There's some decent tunes that they've released post that first album, but it's just one of those things where it's like, why didn't you just do something new? Like Audio Slave, great. Okay, you've got two mega powers working together and you did something different. I don't necessarily love Audio Slave, but they weren't like, let's have Rage Against the Machine with Chris Cornell. It just doesn't make sense. They did something new. Thank you.
Man, we're probably going to take a lot of heat for this episode.
I hope so, because that means people were listening to it.
That's true. Maybe we should just start, talking crap about a bunch of people then. And then I'm like, hey, at least you listen.
See who comes out of the woodwork. Yeah, even things that we love, we'll just start shit talking and be like, oh, you did
I do agree with the Drowning Pool thing just because their first album was amazing.
Yes.
You can't, honestly, I don't think you can rival that album. No matter what you do, I don't think you can rival that as Drowning Pool. So I do understand where you're coming with that, though. I really do.
Yeah. Well, and it's like you're going to have people go to a Drowning Pool show and they want to hear Bodies.
Yeah.
They're going to hear it, but they're not going to hear it the same way. And Bodies wasn't the best song on that album. In fact, at the time, I didn't really like that song that much, to be perfectly honest. There was a lot of better stuff on there, but they're not going to play those. They won't play any of those deep cuts because that's not what people came to see anymore. It's unfortunate. I remember being at a Misfits show when they announced his death, and then they were playing the first album in its entirety, and it was just such a cool experience. A little unusual because it's a punk rock show and you've got, this hard rock band that's playing, but it was a very surreal thing. It kind of felt like we were there seeing Drowning Pool, and then the Misfits came out. So that would be really cool. No lie. I love the Misfits. I've retired wearing a Misfits shirt because just so many other people do. It's become a style rather than like appreciating the music.
Exactly. Like I have all of their albums, including, I know you played on Punk Rock Cemetery, Dig Up Her Bones, which I thought was interesting. I'm not a huge Graves.
Don't like the Michael Graves era?
Yeah, I respected like Famous Monsters. Honestly, is a really good album.
Oh, yeah.
One of my favorites. But just something about the original, and Jerry Only was okay. He tried.
Yeah. And the worst part is I've only been able to see the Misfits with Jerry Only. I've seen them twice. It's been Jerry Only both times. He's fine. Totally fine. But it's not Glenn Danzig and it's not Michael Graves.
Yeah, I thought Graves was good, but again, it's kind of like when you're talking about with Drowning Pool, using a different vocalist, I think really does matter.
Yes.
It's like Brian Johnson playing Bon Scott AC/DC. You're going to hear it. Like, you hear like AC/DC live. You'll hear Rocker, you hear Dirty Deeds, but it just doesn't have that same oomph to it, in my opinion.
AC/DC is one of those bands where I argue that they actually, I'm not going to say improved with Brian Johnson, because that, like Bon Scott, is amazing. Yeah. But I can't tell the difference. My wife can, because she's a huge AC/DC fan. I can't tell the difference.
I can.
I just listen to the recording quality and I go, oh, that sounds old. That must be Bon Scott.
You're cheating. I do, because I love the Bon Scott era. That was like when I first listened to AC/DC, that is what I listened to. Like my favorite album is Dirty Deeds on Dirt Cheap. So kind of going, like, I have no problem with Brian Johnson. Not hating. If anyone's trying to take that assumption, please don't. I've done enough hating already.
I feel like I've dragged you down into this cesspool of hate.
Yeah, you really have. You're really bringing my stock down for this. I didn't do this on your show.
No, you didn't.
Respectful. I didn't say, hey, I don't really care for Godsmack or whatever you just said.
Oh no, I never did that one.
Yeah. I can say you did, though.
You're going to come do some magic editing work, and it's going to be like, I hate Godsmack.
I thought about doing a fake like website where it's like a news website, but doing like The Onion, pretty much. But like doing like funny stuff like relative like to what we you and me be like. Nolan Guenther says he doesn't like Godsmack, or like something funny like that, or the website might get like 2 views and it'll probably be you and me. But just like doing funny, like writing up fake articles like that, and being super serious with it too.
I think there's one called the Punk Rock Times that does that. And they have some just like gold headlines of things. So I would be totally doing an injustice if I was to quote any of them. But one of them was like, scene kid who's now grown up complains about the music on the scene, or something like that.
I think I saw that one.
Yeah. There's so much good stuff on there that it's just like if you grew up going to shows, if you were in the basement, if you listen to music now, whatever it might be, like something in there's going to resonate for you. But yes, a larger version of that would be a lot of fun, and just like shit talking our friends, right? Just oh yeah, Matthew Thomas hates kittens, and also thinks that Madonna's stupid.
Yeah, or hates the band Kitty.
Well, yeah, that's also an option.
But I didn't say that because I would lose all my Canadian audience.
Canadian treasure.
That's right. But all right, as we're going to be wrapping up this interview, because one of my longest, I think my longest was actually Aaron of LC Banks, my Halloween episode, who amazing person both of us have interviewed. She's great to chat with. But as I kind of wrap this up, just actually I got a couple quick questions to ask as I wrap this up. So for anyone like listening to this, if you made it through all of our shit talking and all of that, and our funny stories that probably only funny to us, what's kind of your advice for someone, starting a podcast, currently doing a podcast? Like, what's kind of your advice for that?
I know I've given different advice every time I've been asked that question. So people are probably like, this dude is super inconsistent. Which, yeah, I mean, I'm all over the place. I don't even know where I am today. I credit that to sleep, though. Not all of us get to sleep till 11 a.m.
It's beautiful.
For new podcasters specifically, I think it's just figure out what you want to do and do it. Don't wait. Don't go out or think that you need to spend $10,000 on new equipment. That stuff will all come in time. If you've got a microphone, whether it be your iPhone microphone, your laptop, a webcam, or a decent, USB microphone outside of that, just do it. Make the show, get it out there, start having fun. Those early episodes are really your training ground anyways. You're going to learn what works. And then 20 episodes down the road, you're going to kind of go through that all again and be like, okay, well, I've been doing this for so long, but I should do it this way. So there's no like perfect launching point. So just do it. Don't wait.
I think that's some actually like good advice. Like I will say, looking back on my first couple episodes, I cringe. I really do. It's like I did this wrong. This doesn't even sound good. Like that kind of stuff. But it's also gotten to me where I am, and I think you the same way. But yeah, have fun with it. Like I really tried to embrace that this season with just having fun, and obviously with all the stuff we just talked about, I think I'm embracing it kind of well.
See, I help lift you up as well. I don't just drag you down.
And trying to get me canceled.
Yeah, well, that too.
But that's whatever. I mean,
and there's only one rock interview show.
Yeah, until I take you down, watch it.
Oh, yeah, I guess that's true.
Then I will create that fake headline site. Who is Nolan Guenther? Nobody knows.
They'll just be like, oh, it's that guy who talks too much and seems to show up everywhere.
Yeah, pretty much what it is. But anyway, so I know you talked about this even before this interview and briefly mentioned this as well. So you were obviously part of a band, that kind of stuff. Would you consider like being a part of a band, or is that kind of something you kind of left behind?
You know, it was one of those things like I spent my entire teenage life and even into my early 20s playing music and playing with bands and having that notion of like, well, this is just what I'm going to do with my life. I'm going to be a musician. We're going to get signed. We're going to release music. And it didn't work out. And I think that's a story for a lot of people. Then I hung up the guitar. I didn't play for a long time, and I focused on family and my career and kind of going that direction. And then once my kids started to get older, then I started to play the guitar again. I asked for an acoustic guitar and got that so that it wasn't like I always need to be in front of my amp. But then it just became kind of a casual, fun thing. It's always one of those things in the back of my mind where I'm like, I want to keep writing music. I want to kind of get back into things. I would love to do something. I just don't know what. I don't know where. I don't know how. And am I even any good anymore? Was I even any good then? Who knows? Probably not.
You totally were.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. So it's definitely one of those things that's on my mind. And as I interview bands and I see the changing landscape, because I always ask the question, like, what do you think has changed in this pandemic world for the music industry? And there's always different answers to that. But what kind of circles around it is you don't need a studio. You don't need a band for the most part. And you can get things out there in minutes. If I wanted to put something on Spotify, whether it be the best thing I ever written or just a hunk of garbage just to see how it works, I could do that today if I wanted to. And I should take my own advice where I say, don't wait, just do it. But when it comes to like, I guess that creative side of things, I'm like, no, I need to do it right. It's the same thing with Twitch. I've wanted to do Twitch for so long, but I'm like, I need to do it right if I wanted to do it. And I just don't know if I'm equipped to do that right now. Funny enough, the reason why I played Dig Up Her Bones on my first episode of Punk Rock Cemetery is because Joseph had done a bass cover of it on his YouTube channel. And I was like, hey, do you want to try and like collab on this? And so we did this recording. He did drums and bass and some backup vocals. I did vocals and guitar. And then we never did anything with it for a multitude of different reasons. But that song all of a sudden kind of moved up to the favorite. And I kind of wanted to play it on there as like, well, that other one probably will never see the light of day, but let's play the original version and have some fun with that. But I think at this point, like I just keep launching podcast after podcast and guesting and doing all that stuff. I don't think that there'd be any time to do music, but someday it'll just hit me at the right moment. And I'll be like, all right, I'm ready now.
Yeah, I've thought about, like, people ask me that a lot when I interview people. Is like, have you ever been in a band and played music and stuff? I never have. I actually never was a part of a band. I've never played an instrument either. I think it'd be cool. I think I would like to do like maybe like a one-off specialty show. I thought about like really like a hardcore punk band that includes like Alice Cooper theatrics, which sounds
Awesome.
just maybe great, probably stupid in execution, but that would probably be something. So if anyone steals that idea, I'm gonna be kind of mad, but also thank you for listening to my podcast.
Yeah. And let's crowdfund this band because you got me and you got Joseph. So let's make this happen.
Yes, and that's all we really. You only need a 3-piece anyway. I've never played an instrument, but I can Les Claypool it, not a problem.
Yeah, no problem.
All right, as I wrap up this interview, if you listened for almost 2 hours of this, I really appreciate it. You didn't have to, but I thank you.
Matthew will be sending you a keychain or a medal.
Well, maybe the medal probably won't get past the post office. But what is this thing? What is the plans for Every Podcast I Love Is Dead for 2022? Because it's only January. We barely started this year.
Just scratching the surface, right? Well, I'd say, I guess the most exciting thing is launching Punk Rock Cemetery. I wanted to do a punk rock show for a while. I missed the boat because then all of a sudden the super cool radio was like, let's do all these cool radio blocks. And I was like, damn it. It's going to seem like I'm like, oh, look at what Matthew's doing. Now I'm going to do that, which has been the case for a lot of things. But I launched Punk Rock Cemetery, which is a 1-hour punk rock show that is hosted by DJ NG. Not me, must be somebody different with a very similar voice who loves punk rock. So I'm having a lot of fun with that, in all honesty. Keep doing the EPILID episodes, interviewing guests, bringing people on board. And then, just building out that community and having some fun. And then also with Joseph working on the Basic Ass Dudes podcast and making sure that we get more content out. I think because he's now doing the Brutal block for Super Cool Radio. He's got the Cognitive Discourse going. We host Bad together. There's just a lot of irons in the fire. And it's funny, once you start creating, you kind of don't want to stop. And it's just like this addiction where you're like, I need to do something more. And then you all of a sudden realize that you're a little bit overwhelmed. So I think Basic Ass Dudes is sort of taking a back seat, not intentionally, just because we have so much on the go. So getting some more content out for that podcast, I think would be nice to see this year as well.
Well, I really enjoy the Punk Rock Cemetery. I actually enjoy your show in entirety as well, because it feels like an actual show.
Thank you.
Your intro, you got music clips, your news and entertainment, and obviously the interview too. Like, I feel like I like the way I do my episodes, but honestly, you make it feel like an actual show.
I just watched what you did, and then I was like, I'm going to add this.
Well, honestly, it's actually Joseph who pushed for like the including different shows and stuff. He actually approached me on that. Wasn't planning on doing that this year, but honestly, it's helped out so much with other content falling through on just for me.
Yeah.
For a variety of reasons that it's probably just me, but he was the one who actually has been helping me out a lot with everything, with the Brutal block, and I've actually got maybe another person joining. We'll see. I'm not gonna jinx anything, but I also can't say anything yet. But we'll see. But I do like everything you're doing. Obviously, I'm very envious of your artwork because it looks amazing every time, and I'm trying to get there just to beat you, but I have not successfully gotten there yet.
Yours is great too, man. I think it delivers the message. It conveys what the show is about, and you highlight the artist. You make it all about the artist, which I think is what all of us intend to do, and you do a great job of it. So hats off to you, even though you're wearing a hat and I'm not. Yeah.
Headphones off to you.
Yeah, headphones off. Yeah.
I'm going to drop some links for Every Podcast Love Is Dead in the description. You have your Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, website, Anchor channel, all of that great stuff.
Thank you.
Be that in the description. I'm not on the camera. There we go, in the description. Make sure to check it out. Nolan, thank you so much for hanging out with me here on Super Cool Radio. Fantastic time chatting with you for 2 hours.
Thank you, my friend. It was a lot of fun.
And of course, I'm Rose, as always, Matthew Thomas. Thank you so much for watching and listening to Super Cool Radio. Stay frosty.